Welcome to the table, Baldurs Gate, D&D, and Total War Warhammer friends. Have a seat, cozy up by the fireside with your favorite drink, because tonight we'll be showcasing a very unique modded class and also creating one of my favorite characters from Total War Warhammer. Specifically, we'll be creating Isabella Von Carstein, one of the first vampire counts and lover of Vlad Von Carstein, aka the Dracula of Warhammer Fantasy. The class that we'll be using for her is the Death Knight, specifically the Blood Subclass, and the Blood Subclass makes itself different from the other subclasses and also the base game classes of vanilla Baldurs Gate by using blood magic to kind of make yourself a one-man army, or one-woman army in Isabella's case, and using blood magic to give yourself shields and regenerative abilities. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of the class features of the Blood Death Knight, we should go over some lore with Isabella for those of you who are not familiar with it. Isabella Von Carstein, also known as Isabella Von Drac, was the wife to Vlad Von Carstein and was one of the first vampires of his bloodline too. She is the heir apparent to the county of Sylvania. Isabella Von Drac was the only daughter of the Elector Count Otto Von Drac, the ruler of Sylvania at the time. She was very much like her noble counterparts, super vain, immoral, selfish, and cared very little for anything that did not affect her personal comfort and standing. She was intelligent, and she didn't really have so much of a normal practical education, because the thing is, she was known for her love of the more male pursuits at the time, such as hunting, falconry, more so than the traditional needlework and music. The only thing that really made her desirable as a wife was her cold beauty, but this really wasn't enough to tempt other nobles or elector counts to marry her, and it didn't really help that her father was very selective and picky with who he may have wanted as a suitor for his daughter. But that didn't really stop Vlad Von Carstein from gaining her hand in marriage, because, well, he ironically did it on the night of the Elector Count's death. And the reason that they married was just out of pure convenience, because Isabella would have rather had Vlad be the inheritor and ruler of Sylvania than her very creepy uncle. She was very happy with this marriage. At first, it was, like I said, out of convenience, but then it actually developed into something like of a genuine romance between both her and Vlad. Vlad was also very respectful of Isabella's requests, not to join the undead legions, but also when she was wasting away from fatal illness, it wasn't really specified what she was sick from. Vlad eventually caved in and realized he really couldn't continue his rule without her by his side. So he decided to bite her, turn her into a vampire officially, and right from waking up, she actually drained the blood of a priestess and essentially turned this priestess into a vampire herself, and was one of her main handmaidens. She was forever at Vlad's side, constantly feeding his ambition and teaching him the ways of Sylvanian court and about the wider empire in general. She was a very valued confidant and the only person, living or dead, whose advice that Vlad truly trusted to a T. But that's just the basic overview of Isabella. Let's get into her very first level of character build in Baldurs Gate 3. With this, you can choose human, but to really spruce things up, we will be using the Fantastical Multiverses mod, and it adds a whole bunch of different races for us to choose from. Specifically, we'll choose Lineage and the subrace of Dampier, which is basically D&D's version of a half vampire. Poised between the worlds of the living and the dead, Dampiers retain their grip on life, yet are endlessly tested by vicious hungers. their ties to the undead grant Dampiers a taste of the vampire's deathless prowess in the form of increased speed, dark vision, and a life-draining bite. With unique insights into the nature of the undead, many Dampiers turn to the lives of adventurers and monster hunters. Well, not so much as Isabella. Although, actually it does sound very much in line with her character, considering that she was really into the more adventurous side of things. But her actions are spider climb. Now, it does say spider climb, but really, the animation itself is you literally transforming into bats and insta-teleporting to any location within 18 meters. It is a really sick and super thematic for her character too. We also gain the vampire bite action. It doesn't showcase it here, but there's different types that you can do, such as the normal vampire bite, which does damage. There's also a draining one too, which can come in very handy in a pinch in the early stages of the game. We gain superior dark vision, seeing in the dark up to 24 meters. Ancestral legacy, gaining proficiency in 2 extra skills. We don't need to breathe with our deathless nature, and also with the class and subclass, the blood subclass of the Death Knight is that blood Death Knights are dark guardians who manipulate and corrupt life energy to sustain life themselves in the face of enemy onslaught. Like I said earlier, you are going to be the one-man tank and also the damage dealer for your party, and I can arguably say that this class could potentially solo too. With the Blood Shield Mastery, each time you heal yourself with Death Strike, you gain 50% of the amount healed as a damage absorption shield, stacking up to 25% of maximum health. When the Blood Shield is active, being hit by enemies will cause a small AoE burst that deals enemy level +1 to 8 force damage. So I love the theme of this and the sound of it too, just because not only are you a tank, but basically you're a tank that says, hey, if you hit me, then I'm definitely going to hit you back. Or I have like this aura around me that hits you back. For the background of Isabella, we'll be choosing Noble, just to really roleplay into the fact that she is an elector Countess of Sylvania, giving us skills in history and persuasion. If you want to min-max, choosing soldier can be justified too, to gain athletics and intimidation. You can we can choose soldier here too, just because it plays very well into our ability points with strength and also constitution being our super high ones here. We're going to dump most of our points in there. Dexterity we can leave at a base of 10. Intelligence we're going to take points away from. Wisdom will also leave at a base 10. Charisma is where we're going to dump the rest of our ability points into, because charisma is going to be our casting ability for the blood Death Knight. As for the skill proficiencies, we'll be getting proficiencies in athletics, arcana, insight, perception, deception, and last but definitely not least, intimidation. As always with the character builds, and I definitely should have said this at the beginning too, if you have any objections or if there's anything that you would change, such as skill point or ability point allocations, just let me know in the comments how you would optimize it for yourself, whether it's for roleplay wise or for min-maxing. Either one is valid, just because of the fact that I genuinely love hearing how everyone else builds their characters, because it also provides ideas for me on my next video build ideas. But that is the very first level for Isabella. We do gain quite a lot of features too, with both being a Death Knight and also Dampier / vampire. But some of the other features for Death Knights that I'll talk about in this video, and also go over again in more Death Knight videos for different builds, just because the other subclasses are Frost and Unholy. Some of the other features of the Death Knight are Death Coil of 4 to 14 necrotic damage, fires a blast of unholy energy at the target, causing necrotic damage to an enemy and healing an undead ally for 2d6 hit points. I love the versatility of this. Essentially, it's a nice, not double-edged sword, but I guess a dual purpose where you can dish out damage, but also heal your undead allies. Speak with Dead is a pretty useful class action. Control Undead, that's going to be pretty good in the later parts of the game. And also the unique action of Death Grip. Harness the energy that surrounds and binds all matter, drawing the target toward you. Enemy pulled will be stunned for 1 turn. And this is a really nice addition, just because since this is a melee focused class, closing the distance is going to be key. It does help that we get the spider climb or bat teleportation ability too. Alright, at 2nd level we gain an action called Heart Strike, which is weapon damage, instantly striking the target with your weapon, causing 2 to 16 force damage. This effect hits all enemies near the target and generates 10 runic power per hit while you remain in Death and Decay, which specifically Death and Decay corrupts the target ground, slowing down all targets within the area and dealing damage by 5% of their maximum health over 10 turns, which is a pretty long time in combat. On miss, does not expend blood runes. And yes, all of these special actions, think of them almost like using key points. So blood runes are essentially your key points to this class. We also gain a fighting style. We can get great weapon fighting, 2 weapon fighting, dueling, or defense. And because I do want this to be sort of like a tanky class and making sure that Isabella can hold our own in combat, I'm leaning towards defense, but also I do remember she is a pretty offensive fighter. When you roll a 1 or 2 on a damage die with a 2-handed melee weapon, the die is rerolled once. At level 3, we gain more features: Harbinger of the Scourge, gaining immunity to all diseases, Death and Decay, Horn of Winter. Death Knight blows the Horn of Winter, increasing total strength and dexterity of all allies within 12 meters by 3, lasting 10 turns. Just basically a rally and buff to all of your allies. Increase of 1 blood rune, and also Blood Boil, which does 2 to 12 damage and infects all enemies within 6 meters with Blood Plague for 2 turns. Shadowy Disease that deals 1d6 health from the target each turn and makes the target frenzied, directing its aggression towards you. Well, this does seem like a bit of a catch-22, so... well, actually, it's a nice crowd control if I think about it too. You basically get enemies focused on you away from the rest of your party members while dealing some constant damage to them over time. At level 4, we gain some new actions here of Raising the Dead, raising a ghoul to fight by our side specifically, and while it's only 1 ghoul at a time, it's basically a nice little meat shield for you to distract enemies with, and it's almost like your little mini tank helper. Chains of Ice shackles the target with frozen chains, reducing the movement by 100% and affecting it with chilled for 2 turns. Death Pact sacrifices an undead minion, healing the Death Knight for 50% of maximum health, and yes, adding to the meat shield cannon fodder rule of our Raised Dead. Now, for this level, I do like going with ability improvement, but because I want to play into the fact that this class is going to be the frontline tank, I'm going to choose Tough at the very start, just because when you pick tough at 4th level, it's going to really maximize the amount of extra health that you gain up until level 12. So its hit point is increased by 2 for every level you have gained. At level 5, we gain the extra attack feature, another blood rune, and also an action of Death Strike, focusing power into a strike that deals additional 2 to 20 force damage and heals you for 25% of damage taken last turn, minimum of 10% maximum health. Hits have a 60% chance to regenerate 1 blood rune and give it back to you. On miss, doesn't expend the blood rune power. At level 6, more actions of AntiMagic Shell surrounds the Death Knight in an AntiMagic Shell, absorbing 50% of magical damage dealt by harmful spells, adding to even more tanking potential. Magical damage absorbed by the AntiMagic spell energizes the Death Knight with additional 10 runic power lasting 6 turns. Mind Freeze, smash the target's mind with cold, preventing any spell from being cast for 6 turns, and hey, essentially silence, and infects chilled for 2 turns, with that being that they are vulnerable to cold damage and resistant to fire damage. Not really going to be casting too many fire spells as a vampire though. Rune Tap, immediately convert 25% of health into 50 runic power. And yeah, I think this is this is definitely worth it too, considering that we did choose tough to increase our constitution / maximum health point way later down the line. So we'll have some health points to spare for sure. At level 7, gaining a class feature of 20 runic power, weapon is now infused with runic power, enabling it to invoke the might of a Death Knight. So basically just buffing our attack and damage. Level 8, we gain a new feat and also a new subclass feature. Runic power in your weapon is further strengthened. Melee weapon attacks deal additional 1 to 8 force damage, and the chance to replenish runic power is increased to 30%. With the feat, you can definitely go with an ability improvement, either bumping up constitution for, yes, more tankiness. Having the extra strength too for just a tad bit more damage is really nice. For flavor purposes, I personally like going with a Martial Adept, gaining a superiority die, and also learning Riposte. Essentially having some extra attack features. I personally like having Riposte as one of my go-to abilities. And when a hostile creature misses you with a melee attack, expend a superiority die to retaliate with a powerful strike, dealing additional 1d8 damage. I really like that for Isabella because of the fact that it's kind of playing into, yes, her martial prowess and being a capable soldier. I am really leaning towards Rally just because you spend a superiority die to grant an ally 8 temporary hit points, bolstering their resolve. This can play very well hand in hand with your undead ghoul that you'll summon for cannon fodder. At level 9, we gain Raise Ally, pours dark energy into a dead target, reuniting spirit and body to allow the target to re-enter the battle with 50% of maximum health. And Death's Advance, embrace the power of the Shadowlands and teleport to the target location. I like this too just because it's essentially increasing our movement speed. Level 10, we gain 1 Unholy Rune, 1 Frost Rune, and 1 Blood Rune, with another subclass feature, Crimson Scourge. Weapon attacks on targets have a 15% chance to make your next Death and Decay or Blood Boil free, and you can recast Death and Decay. Alternatively, your next death strike deals additional force damage based on your blood shield amount. And yeah, as a reminder, blood shield is basically just temporary hit points and basically like your little shield that will do AoE damage to those who actually land a hit on it. Level 11 is additional blood runes. And of course with level 12, we'll gain an extra feat, plus also more runic power, and Gorfiend's Grasp. Shadowy tendrils coil around all enemies within 12 meters, pulling them to your location, dealing 4 to 32 force damage. Enemies pulled will be stunned for 1 turn. This is very devastating as an ability. Just being able to bring everyone in an area around to you, dealing damage to them like to a maximum of 32, and also stunning them for you to have like a follow-up attack on all of them. This essentially is, it's not a get out of jail free card. It is basically like a screw you to all enemy mobs out there. Feat, you could really go either way with this. I'm going to probably go into ability point modifier, but also Great Weapon Master is a good choice here too. When you land a critical hit or kill a target with a melee weapon attack, you can make another melee weapon attack as a bonus action that turn. I'm gonna probably lean towards this to add to Isabella's aggressiveness. Attacks with melee weapons you are proficient with and are wielding in both hands can deal an additional 10 damage at the cost of a -5 attack roll penalty. Yeah, I'm definitely going with that, even with the negatives too. As for the specific gear for Isabella, it will be centered around undead and also being able to tank more damage. So the first one that we'll be using is the Circle of Bones circlet, which grants us the Animate Dead spell and also Undead Ward. Allied undead within 6 meters are resistant to bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing damage. The Nymph Cloak will allow us to have Dominate Person, which will be perfect for Isabella roleplay wise, making a humanoid fight alongside you. Every time the creature takes damage, it makes a wisdom saving throw against your domination, and well, allies can't be dominated. This will be perfect for Isabella just because even though she is more of like the Von Carstein bloodline of being able to be a frontlines fighter, this fits well into her vampiric charm too. The adamantine split armor will be one of the main armor pieces, reducing all damage by 2 with intense adamantine black backlash. When an enemy attack hits you, the attacker is sent reeling for 3 turns. So with reeling, that just means recovering from receiving a terrible blow or hitting a strong metal. Has a -1 penalty to attack rolls for every turn remaining. We do get disadvantage on stealth checks, but like I said, you're going to be a frontline damage dealer anyway. Attackers can't deal critical hits on the wearer, adding more features to you being a tank. Legacy of the Masters means arming enhancement, gain a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls with all weapons, and a +1 to strength saving throws. Linebreaker Boots adds to a little bit of a momentum for Isabella. Once per turn, when you dash, you gain Wrath for 2 turns. Thus, that may just be a +1 to your damage rolls, but it's better. It will stack up over time. Wakeful Amulet is useful, so Isabella can't be put to sleep and won't stop your ongoing rampage. Crypt Lord Ring has the Create Dead necromancy spell, which is different from the Animate Dead spell from Circle of Bones. This is basically just a more powerful undead spell, raising a corpse, raising mummies, shadows, or death knights instead of your usual skeletons and zombies. Burner String for the last equipment gives us Paralyzing Ray, and makes the target stop in place for 2 turns, and just gives you a little bit more time to hunt down and chase down the more evasive targets. That's it for this character build, friends. Let me know in the comments if there would be any changes that you would make in terms of leveling or equipment choice. As always, I want to hear your personal favorites and character builds for creating different vampire, undead, or essentially just Halloween-esque theme builds. And if you love talking shop about all things D&D, Elder Scrolls, a bit of Warhammer as well, remember to hit that like and subscribe buttons, and I'll save you a seat at the table for the next adventure.